Hello, welcome to Rosália Reads. I'm Deja, and today we are going to do a try a chapter of some of my anticipated releases. This is not the video that I had planned for this week, but the video that I did have planned, I don't feel like filming it right now. And I figured that now would be a good time to go through some of the books that I was anticipating for 2025 and just try a chapter of them to see if I'm even interested. I have taken quite a few of my 2025 anticipated releases off of my list because of just things that I was hearing about them. It just didn't sound appealing to me. And while the goal of this video isn't necessarily to take some of these books off of my list, I think that trying a chapter will give me a better idea of what to expect. So, yeah, we will see how I feel about some of these books. There are and were multiple books that I was anticipating for 2025, but today I am only going to go through like 5 to 7 of them. And I have a few of them checked out from the library, so I'll get through those first to see if I want to get to those anytime soon. And then I have a few that I will just be trying a sample of from either Amazon or I think one of them is, what is it? Blackwell's, because it's only available in the UK. So yeah, one of the ones that I'm hoping to try today is Blood of My Blood by Sonia Blade or Sonia Blade. I think it's Sonia Blade. This is a vampire paranormal romance with a Latina main character. So I'm curious to see like what I think about this, especially because I have been more in the mood for more of that darker paranormal mood. So this one does seem like it's going to give me those vibes. So this is one book that I will be trying a chapter of. I also have The Reaper by Jackson P. Brown that I'm hoping to try. This is another darker urban fantasy that I heard a lot about when it was like coming out, but since it has been out, I don't think I've heard many people talking about it. So I'm curious to see what I think about the first chapter of this, and if I like it, since I can't get it anywhere else, I might actually order this book. Another one that I have is Beast of Carnaval, which is a Puerto Rican inspired fantasy. This one is compared to The Night Circus, which I had interesting thoughts about the night circus, but I remember really enjoying like the atmosphere of it and just thinking that the author was a really good writer. So I'm curious to know what I will think about this one, considering that it is Puerto Rican inspired. And I just really love culturally infused fantasy books with beautiful writing. So I'm really hoping that I enjoy this one and want to continue soon. And then I have a few from the library. So the first one is Harmattan Season by Tochi Onyebuchi. This is an author that I have not necessarily had the best of luck with. I think I've mentioned multiple times, like I'm not really a YA reader anymore. Of course, I'll still pick it up occasionally, but it's not really what I'm like reaching for these days. And he's only had, I think, one other adult fantasy book. So I wanted to give another book by him a try, especially because it is fantasy. But I will be honest that like I'm not sure how I will feel about this because it is detective fantasy and I don't do well with detectives in books in general, but especially in fantasy. So yeah, it's short. So we will see about this one. Another one that I'm looking forward to trying is Love You to Death, which I've heard really good things about so far. Not a lot of hype around it, but it is following these two women that are best friends and they basically rob plantation weddings. And I absolutely love that. So I wanted to try this to see what I think of it, to see if I even vibe with the author's writing, to before I commit to just reading it completely. Going back to the urban fantasy paranormal, we have The Ghost of Gwendolyn Brooke. This is another one that I've heard conflicting things about. I remember it getting so much hype when it was about to come out, but since then I feel like it's been crickets around this book. And the two people that I have heard talking about this book, one really liked it and the other one didn't like it, like they actually DNF'd it. So I don't know where I'm going to land with this. And the last one that I'm hoping to try in this video is The Intergalactic Empire of Wakanda by Suyi, Davies, Okungbowa. and I have high hopes about this one. I mean, I don't feel like I'm not going to like this, but I do want to try a chapter just to see how I vibe with this author being in a world that he has not created. So those are the books that I'm hoping to try. I don't know what I'm going to start with first. Maybe Harmattan season. I might start with that one since it's like the shorter one. But yeah, I will check in when I have another update. Okay, I have finished the first two books that I wanted to try a chapter of. I apologize for the bad lighting, and if you start to hear like a storm in the background, it has been storming here, so yeah, apologies for all of that, but hopefully it's not too loud. The first one that I tried a chapter of is Harmattan Season by Tochi Onyebuchi, and I'm actually pleasantly surprised that I like the first chapter. I feel like the character has this interesting voice that is keeping me engaged. It's not sarcastic, but just the way that he sees things is just very interesting. He was basically talking about bad luck, like just being around him, and so like he doesn't really leave his house, and like he even works from home because of all the bad luck and how it just seems to like attract him. And so yeah, I thought that was like very interesting. In this first chapter, a woman shows up super bloodied and she's like, "Can I hide in your house?" And he's like, "Where are you going to hide?" Like, he lives in basically like a studio apartment, but he's just like, "Okay, whatever. Like, you can hide in a closet." And soon after, this like police force kind of people like come and they're like searching and emptying out the apartment complex and stuff, and they don't find her, but they know that she was basically there because the blood tracks all the way to his apartment. And when he goes back to his apartment, he finds that the woman is gone, and it doesn't necessarily like make him like want to go find out like what is happening and all of that, but I think as a reader it just left me with like so many questions. I'm just like, who is this woman? What is your relationship to this police officer? I'm very curious what he does for work too. Like, they say that he goes and finds people and they're not always necessarily good people. And I'm just like, I'm very intrigued. So color me very surprised by how engaged I am with this story so far. The next one that I picked up did not go as well, and that is The Ghost of Gwendolyn Brooke. So this one had a prologue, but also a first chapter. I really like the prologue. The prologue, like a lot of paranormal like prologues do, like they follow some kind of like backstory where you're following different characters. This prologue focused on Giselda and what's her name? Madrina. Giselda and Madrina. And I guess Giselda has some kind of gift. Oh my gosh. I don't know if you guys can hear that, but it's really storming out here. But Giselda has some kind of gift, but she's just like, I'm not messing with this anymore. So then we move on into the first chapter where we are introduced to Gwendolyn. And it starts off in a dream sequence that is very sexual with like her current boyfriend, and then we get into the day to day of her life. Like, she's getting dressed, getting coffee, and like you get all of these like extra details, just all of that. And then you get like some backstory on like how she met James, how she even started getting into a relationship because she wasn't really into that. And I'm just like, this is not interesting. Like, I found myself skimming a lot of this so far. The first chapter was only about 20 pages, I think. And I don't know, like the first part of it, I was like, we're really starting with a dream sequence. And that it wasn't like bad, but I'm also like, a dream sequence? Oh my gosh. Seriously? Not the lights cutting off on me while I'm filming. And we're back. Okay. So, as I was saying, oh, I'm not even gonna go down that thought. I was just thinking, I am reading a paranormal book and the lights cut out. So, yeah, we're not gonna go down that train of thought. But anyway, we have the dream sequence happening right now, and then you have her day to day, and then you have James, who, again, oh my gosh. Okay, we are back. I don't know what's going on. It was out for a good little minute, so I'm gonna try to rush through this update so that I can continue reading just in case it happens again. So Yeah, I was talking about the ghost of Gwendolyn Montgomery. And like I was saying, the first few pages is like a dream sequence. And then you get through her day to day life of basically getting ready, going to work. You get a lot of backstory on like how she met James, who is her boyfriend, even though they haven't really labeled their relationship yet. But basically, you get all this background information before you get to an actual event that she is managing as like a publicity manager, I believe. At this event, that's when things actually start getting interesting because her event is ruined because there's like blood everywhere as like these models, I want to say, are walking down the runway. They turn on the lights, they see that the word traitor is written in Spanish on like kind of a backdrop thing. And so that's where the story leads off. If I was going based on this first chapter, I don't know if I'm necessarily that interested anymore, only because of all of that like extra background stuff happening. And maybe that will play a bigger part, but I'm like, this is less than 300 pages. Did we really need the dream sequence? Did we really need to see her going to get coffee? Did we really need to know all of that backstory about James and how she met him? Did we really need to know that the business is struggling right now? For a first chapter, it didn't really captivate me. But I'm not going to say I'm not going to read it. Like, I think that the last part of it definitely captured my attention a lot more. Like, I want to know who wrote Traitor and stuff like that. I'm very interested with like Giselda and something, whatever her name was. But yeah, not a strong first chapter in my opinion, but I will still read it to see what I think of it. Next, I'm thinking I will pick up Blood of My Blood. I'm looking at my laptop because I have them pulled up now. So I think I'm going to do Blood of My Blood and Beast of Carnival. Gosh, I hate thunderstorms too. So, gosh, it's just storming out there. But yeah, I'll do Blood of My Blood, Beast of Carnival, and The Reaper. Yeah, I think I'll do that now before I eat dinner. But yeah, I did want to update because yeah, I finished those two. And the way my memory is these days, like I will probably forget about them pretty soon. But so let me go ahead and get into the next few books and I will come in and check in later. I have finished the first chapter of the next book, which is Blood of My Blood by Sonia Blade. I believe that this is a paranormal romance debut, so I definitely wanted to try the sample of this one. And so far, we are following a woman named Jocelyn who has been left by her fiance and no longer engaged to that guy. So, in order to rebound, she decides she's going to get dressed up and go to this bar. So, we are at the bar and she meets this mysterious guy who is basically hitting on her. And you kind of get the sense that like something is a little bit off in this bar. Like everyone is immediately just like staring at her, and like you think at the beginning it's because like she's super attractive, but another thing with this character is that she is kind of just like a little bit insecure. That past relationship with her fiance leaving her definitely left her emotionally damaged and not as confident as she used to be. So she's just like a little bit awkward as like all these people are like looking at her, and how she's like sitting at the bar just trying to like stumble through her words and get back out there. But this first chapter is pretty much her having a conversation with this guy that she meets at the bar. But towards the end of the chapter, you start to see like, oh, like there's something strange happening, and there's this like warning that she gets to run to safety, but she ends up getting drugged by the guy that she meets at the bar. And we don't see anything on page at this chapter, but she is basically terrified at the end of this chapter, and you know something bad is going to happen. So that's where the chapter left off. I really like this author's writing. I did kind of feel like the scenes were running on a little bit too long, but not necessarily that it was taking my attention away and that I was skimming everything. I really did get the paranormal vibe of just like hidden secrets, like dangerous creatures and all this other stuff in just the sample that I read, even though like you're not really sure like what is a little bit off about like these people, but reading the summary, like it's vampires. So you don't really get introduced to the paranormal elements there, but you just kind of know that something bad has happened by the end of the first chapter. So this is definitely one that I want to continue. I like Jocelyn as a character. I feel like her backstory, which is that fiance and just how she's trying to get back out there and all of that, like I feel like kind of made me really like her, which is not really surprising for me because I like emotionally damaged characters. And so I'm really curious where her story is going to go. I kind of know what happens because of the summary, but I'm just curious about her as a character, like where her character arc is going to take her. So this one is definitely one that I will be continuing. I will say that if you are picking this up, it'll probably be good to check some content warnings. Like there were just little mentions of like the pregnancy things of her basically having a miscarriage, and there is spousal death that is mentioned as well, and of course her being drugged. And I'm not sure if the next chapter is going to go into depth about what happened over the night when she is basically drugged, but I feel like it does lead into these like darker elements. So definitely check those if you need them. But I'm going to move on to the next book, which I'm thinking I will go to The Reaper to keep on this paranormal vibe. So yeah, let's get to it. Okay, I finished the first chapter of The Reaper, and it was an interesting first chapter. I really like the author's writing. It definitely gives you those darker urban fantasy, like paranormal world vibes. And I swear, that is what I'm looking for right now when I'm talking about wanting like paranormal creatures, when I'm wanting vampires, when I'm wanting like werewolf things. Like I'm okay with cozy, but like I want like the darker underworld type of things, and this author really builds that atmosphere really well. So it actually starts off with this kind of like prologue thing, and it is taking place from the male main character's point of view. Like he's not named, but you pretty much know that it's him just from like the summary that you get, and um just basically what happens in the next chapter. And it seems like he is coming into his power, which is a very interesting. He is a Grim Reaper, which is definitely an aspect of the story that I was really intrigued with. I feel like the way that the author writes their descriptions was just very like visceral, which was very nice to see in an urban fantasy. So I'm just very curious about all of that. And then we go into the actual first chapter where we're following Amy, who is the female main character, and she's basically at this bar waiting for vampires to arrive. She doesn't really like hunt vampires, I don't think, but like she has this notebook that she lists like documents things about paranormal creatures, because the gift that she has in this paranormal world is empathy. And so like she just feels like the feelings of a lot of the people around her. And so she is basically feeling the feelings of like the vampire couple that comes in, that basically wants to drink the blood of a customer coming in. It was interesting to see her in this like paranormal world because she has empathy, but like she's not hunting like a lot of the other protagonists do in a lot of urban fantasy paranormal books. So like literally she goes into the bathroom because she knows the vampires are about to suck the blood out of somebody, and she doesn't do anything. She literally just goes in there, washes her hands, and like gets like the feelings of like the vampire as they're like really wanting to suck the blood out of this woman that they took into the bathroom. But yeah, after she washes her hands, gets that like feeling or whatever, like she just leaves and then walks home. So like I don't know, like it she's an interesting character to me so far. You get more information on how she discovered her gift, on the relationship between her parents, and how she was sent to live with her grandmother. You also get some very detailed descriptions of her walking home, which I think I kind of knew what happened just because of the interview that I did watch with the author, and they were talking about how they were just kind of imagining how London would look with like an underworld, like paranormal world and stuff. So, yeah, I kind of expected that, but I didn't feel like it was like too lengthy that like it was taking away my enjoyment. And since I've never been to London, like it was interesting to see them describe it. Like I know it's authentic. Like I could just tell with like just the little details that the author wrote that is very authentic. So I actually did really like that. And then towards the end of the chapter is when we actually get her perspective on the Grim Reaper character that we see in the awakening part, which is kind of like the little prologue part that I talked about earlier. So she's seeing him going through like absorbing all of this power and stuff, but she doesn't know who he is or anything. But she's just like, oh, this is like a creature that I haven't encountered before. I'm going to find this person again. And that's how the chapter ends. And so, yeah, I'm intrigued with this one. I feel like it did a good job at getting me intrigued. Like, I'm not necessarily like super hooked, like, oh, I need to know what happens next and all of that. But the way that the author writes it, like, I want to be in this world. I want to be with these characters. So, yeah, I think this is one that I will buy from Blackwell's because, yeah, I want to see where the story goes. And I think that it's going to be a trilogy. So, yeah, so far so good. I'm really enjoying my paranormal reads right now. And it's like the perfect timing because fall is going to be here very soon. And I'm so ready. I'm just so ready. So I'm actually going to take a little bit of a break now. I'm going to eat dinner and I don't know what I'm going to read next. Maybe I will do The Beast of Carnaval, but I kind of want to take a little bit of like screen time break. So I might actually pick up the other two books that I have physically from the library. I might switch it up a little bit and do the Love You to Death one since I've been reading a lot of like fantasy and paranormal things. So, yeah, I think I will pick up Love You to Death next and I will check in a little bit. All right, I have finished the first chapter of the next few books, and these will be the last books that I try a chapter for. So, the first one that I read was The Intergalactic Empire of Wakanda, and this one has kind of like a prologue situation and a first chapter. In the prologue, we get this perspective of this kind of all knowing being. I don't want to say they are a god because I'm not exactly sure if they are a god, but they give this like information about who we're going to be following. And there was actually a line in the prologue that I was just like, oh, I'm definitely going to love this. Let me see if I can find it. So basically, at the end of the prologue, the being that we're following in this prologue, he says, the tale that unfolds before you is that of three different men who will determine the future of this empire: a king who sought to be a hero who was reduced to a slave, and a slave who advanced into a legend. And if you know anything about me, I absolutely love when we have like just interesting character arcs, and each of these men just have so many like interesting ways that they could get to like their end destination. So I'm just very curious like how that's going to work. But then we go into the first chapter where we're following one of the men. He's not named because he doesn't know who he is. It actually starts off with a dream sequence, which of course, you know, from my thoughts about the Gwendolyn Montgomery book, it's not my favorite, but we quickly move on to the action because we find out that he is basically a prisoner in the property of someone, and he's like, no, I'm not doing that. So he ends up breaking out. And yeah, like I said, he doesn't remember who he is, but his body just kind of remembers that he used to do like some kind of defense or something, so he can pretty much like fight his way out. But yeah, I'm definitely very hooked with this one, and I really wasn't expecting anything less because it's Suyi Davies Okungbowa, and I really love Black Panther, and I'm so here for this. So this one is definitely one that I will be reading hopefully soon. It got dark because the sun is probably behind a cloud. My bad. But the next chapter that I ended up reading is The Beast of Carnaval, which is one that I tried the chapter of on Amazon. This one also had a kind of prologue situation where it had this young boy who knows that he's about to die or something because a monster basically comes to his door, and he basically follows this monster to some kind of river. I don't know. I'm very curious about that. I don't know why he would just follow a monster out of his house, but it almost seemed like he didn't really have a choice. So I'm not like too mad or irritated by that, but I was just like, okay. And then we get to the actual first chapter where we have a woman named Sophia who was previously a slave that has now gained her freedom. Basically, this first chapter was just a lot about her relationship to her previous owner, and it's basically just setting us up with like who she is, who she formerly was, and what matters to her. And that is pretty much her brother and her father ended up disappearing, and now that she is a free person, she is going to go search for them. This one I wasn't necessarily obsessed with. Like, I literally just read it not even like 30 minutes ago, but I'm still even just blanking on a lot of even what I read, because I remember that there was some kind of machine that her previous owner like made that she was telling field hands like where to place. And then she goes into the office of her former owner because I guess they're kind of friends. I don't know. That relationship is interesting to me, I guess. And I will say that the book does acknowledge that there is that like tension that they can't really be friends because she used to own her when they were little, but yeah, they have like some kind of conversation where we find out she's also a writer. And then they're getting ready to get on a boat to go to this Carnaval island place. So, yeah, I don't have any strong opinions about it. I just was not as hooked as some of these other books that I've been reading. I'm still gonna try it. I requested my library buy it. So, yeah, we will see where that one goes. And then the last one that I tried was Love You to Death by Christina Dotson. This one also had a prologue that was very interesting because in this prologue, you basically see that like something has happened where there's like a lot of blood, and she's just very much regretting like I should not be here, like I really should not be here. And yeah, I will say that it kept me intrigued with like where the story is going. But then we move into the first chapter, and the first chapter starts off with like her at a hotel. That's where she works, and you basically just get an introduction to who this character is, what she's trying to do, and at the end, like she ends up going to this dinner with her father and her stepmom and her stepsister. And yeah, I was not really that impressed with this first chapter either. I do think that it was just showing her ordinary day. And because we're just seeing her ordinary day, like nothing really called to me that made me like, oh, I need to know what happens next. Like there is kind of like a cliffhanger that happens, but again, it wasn't really something that I was like, oh, I'm coming into this for the thriller aspects and I need to know what happens next. But yeah, I don't know. I'm still going to try this one because this character seems to have like very interesting relationships with like a lot of people. Like you would think from this summary that it's just like a tense relationship with like her best friend, but it seems to be she has tense relationships with a lot of people. With her dad, even though like she says that he supports her, I'm just like this dude does not really have her back. And then like of course like her stepsister and her stepmother, not the best people. It had like drama elements, I will say. Like you can tell that this person has a messy kind of life, but in terms of like the thriller aspects and making me engaged, Mm, I don't know. I wouldn't necessarily say that it really succeeded in capturing my attention for that. So, yeah. So, if I were to rank these in terms of what I'm most interested in reading, my top priority would definitely be the Intergalactic Empire of Wakanda. Like, I am immediately intrigued with like wanting to read this and just like wanting to know what these three guys are going to be doing and like how their stories interconnect. And then next, I don't know what I would do next. Maybe I would do Harmattan season by Tochi Onyebuchi, which is a huge surprise for me because, like I said, I was not expecting much from this, but it definitely got me hooked. Like, what is going on with this bloodied woman, and what is this guy about to do? So, yeah, I think this would be the next one that I'd be very interested in. And then I think I would do. Hmm. It would either be Blood of My Blood or The Reaper. And I'm almost thinking I would do Blood of My Blood first. I just feel like the character called to me just a little bit more in that one, just because I don't know, she just seemed like a fascinating character. And like I said before, I love emotionally damaged characters. And I'm intrigued with that one. And even with all of the like trigger warning content in it, I feel like it just left off in a way that makes me want to pick it up more than how the Reaper did. Now, I will put the Reaper next because, like I said, like I'm still very intrigued with this world and just like the dynamic that the Grim Reaper will have and this empath will have. Like I'm very interested in their dynamic, and I really appreciated the way that the author like did all of the descriptions of like London and stuff. And yeah, I'm definitely still willing to try that one out, and I do really like the author's writing, but just a little bit less than Blood of My Blood. And then I think, hmm, the last three, I am not exactly sure because all three of them kind of had the same problem where it just felt like it was day to day things. Like, I don't think that day to day life is really going to keep me engaged. But if I had to choose the next one, I think I would do Beast of Carnival. I I don't really have a reason, but like maybe it's recency bias since I just read that one and I read the other ones yesterday. But like, I don't know, that one didn't seem as much of a slog to get through as like some of the other ones. And then I think I would do Love You to Death because this one I also feel like I read a little bit faster, so not necessarily like a slog to get through as well. I just didn't like hook me. And then I guess the last one would be The Ghost of Gwendolyn Montgomery because that one I definitely felt the page length in it and I did find myself skipping. But yeah, that would be my order of like how I would rank these. I'm really happy that I did these. I didn't take anything off my TBR, which wasn't really the purpose, but like it would have been nice because my TBR is ginormous. But yeah, I'm happy I tried these to see just how I think of them. Did any of these sound interesting to you based on the first chapter? I would definitely love to know because I know some of these are also on your TBR. And if you have read any of these, let me know if it like gets better from there or if it's just going downhill because I will gladly take it off my TBR. But if you don't want to do that, you can also just leave whatever emoji I put on the screen. But yeah, I really thank you for watching, and I will see you in my next video. Bye.